Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about copy pasting. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, do you copy paste a lot of code when you start out on solving a problem instead of thinking about the abstractions from the get-go? Nope. I don't copy paste code unless the only time I copy paste code is if it is a copy paste solution. So an example would be let's imagine that you were to work in one of my teams, and in a specific project that we have, we have a lot of integrations towards a lot of different external systems. And so the way we solve that problem is basically to create a folder where we have a lot of REST. Well, it's not just REST clients; it's API clients basically. It could be REST, and some of them are, I think, not REST. They're like GraphQL's APIs, and then we have like something in XML and so forth. So what we do is that well, technically REST can still be XML. Sorry, yeah, digressing. Anywho, in that scenario, when you're creating a API client, we have a template which I created, where basically the idea is that it's the same code every single time. It's almost a copy-paste solution. You can literally copy-paste the like whatever folder lies next to yours, like the code in there, and simply replace the basically the host, like the path name and the host and all of the things like the HTTP method, etc. So it just fits the thing that you're trying to do. Even the unit test is practically identical. So in that scenario, I would copy paste the template code, or like the code that is already there, and just retrofit the stuff that I need into the solution. That is the only time I really do that sort of stuff. It's not that common. The thing that I see a lot of in some cases, I'm not even going to say junior software developers, because I don't think it's a junior thing. It is a I don't know how to think just yet problem, where you have software developers who go and copy paste. They search for the solution, they find a Stack Overflow thing or something like that, and then they kind of go, okay, now I'm going to copy paste this thing and then retrofit it into whatever I'm trying to do, right? The problem with that is that if you don't know if that is a good approach or not, it's very dangerous, because it will derail you most likely. It's sort of like learning how to exercise the wrong way, if that makes sense. You're learning, say, bad form or something, and it derails you into one way of thinking. It's sort of like being sidetracked by someone you're talking to. And if you do something like that, what actually happens is that it takes you longer to do the thing that you have to do, which is to understand what you're trying to achieve, to understand the abstraction, or like the actual thing that you're trying to do. And what's difficult about that is that now you don't you're almost adding more to your problem, because now you have that other person's code, and now you're trying to first understand what that other person did and how to change it so that it does the thing that you want to be able to do, instead of going, all right, let's not do that. Let's not, because you have identified that this is not a copy-paste solution, most likely. So you just leave that code out of there and start working with the abstractions to start off with. Like, you start doing things from just your perspective first and foremost. This is how I usually do things. And so when I solve any problem, the thing that I try to figure out first and foremost is almost always, when I solve a problem, what type of functionality am I looking for? What is the right abstraction here? Do I need a function? Do I need an interface or something like that? The reason why I like to start with functions and interfaces is because these are the cheapest things that I could possibly experiment with. So let's say that I have a problem that I don't fully understand how to solve. Well, I know that because it's almost like, in a sense, it's like a micro version of getting requirements. Either you have a data structure And the requirements for a data structure is an interface. So you declare an interface and you say, all right, these are the fields that I'm going to deal with. And you can sort of derive that, okay, from that I can now create some type of function or something like that. That is usually you're going to produce some type of logic, right? And then you create a function for the whole thing, because the function is also the cheapest thing that you can possibly make. Sometimes I know that there's an existing structure like object-oriented programming or something like that, where I know that I should create a class, because basically that is what I'm going to end up with anyway. And so I create that abstraction, and then I take it step by step. I'm a very big fan of trying to to go as far as I can on the things that I know I have to be able to do. So you've probably seen a bunch of videos where people tell you stuff like, oh, you can comment and pseudocode out all the steps that you're going to take in order to execute your logic. And I'm a big fan of working until the first unknown happens, where basically I know that from this thing I'm trying to do, I'm going to try to, I don't know, filter a list or something like that. Well, okay, then I need an array. I need to have some, as I said, an interface for the data that's going to be in the array. I need a function that does the filtering, etc. So I sort of just gather together the code that I know I have to have, so that I can then sit down and basically not touch my keyboard. Usually I like to play with my beard when I do this. So if you see me play with my beard, I usually am thinking very intensely. And I sit and I stare at the code until an idea pops into my head. And that idea is either go and research this thing that you don't fully understand, or try adding this, or like, let's try to do this, and so forth and so forth. But I always start with the abstraction, because as I said, the process of understanding what I have to achieve is, it will take longer if I copy paste something that I don't fully understand, because I don't know if this is the thing that I need before I understand the problem that I'm dealing with. So what I want you to take away from this is that no, I usually never copy paste unless I know for a fact that the copy pasted code is literally the thing that I need. It's basically a template where you know that you just need to change a few values in the solution, and then it's actually everything else is like exactly as it should be, such as with when you're creating like an API client or something like that. It's almost always the same thing. That's why we, in many cases, generate that. We can generate based on an open API or Swagger file or something like that, generate the client itself, because it's such a predictable thing that you're going to do. It's the same thing with ORMs or things like that, where querying the database, it's always going to be the same thing. So there you can copy paste and just switch things out, right? But if you do it with more complicated things, I think you're going about it the wrong way, because you fundamentally have to understand what you're trying to achieve before you do the copy paste thing. So that's why I try to say, as I was saying, I usually start with an interface or a function or something like that, and then I start to think about, okay, what do I sort of need to do? And then I create as much code as I can until I get to a point where I'm not really sure how to proceed. And when I do that, when I get to that point, that's when I usually sit down and think very intensely about what I'm going to do. I find that in a lot of cases, when the logic is very complicated, I like to apply test-driven development, because it allows me to really like take it slow and say, all right, first it needs to be able to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and you create a test case for each thing as you go along. And that's why I always start it's just my own personal learnings. That's why I always start with a function and an interface, because these are like the lowest effort things for me to experiment with. More complicated things like classes and so forth, they take a little bit more work, like to set up and manage when you're just sort of playing around with the code. But at least when you're doing things like TypeScript or so forth, a function and an interface is like the least amount of effort that you can work with conceptually to sort of experiment until you know how to proceed forward. Have a great day.